White blood cells might not get as much attention as red blood cells, but they're the immune system's frontline defenders. Let's dive into how these cells are structured, how they function, and why they're essential for keeping us healthy. Going back to the whole blood sample, remember that in the buffy coat portion, we found both white blood cells and platelets. Now we are going to take a closer look at the white blood cells. White blood cells, or WBCs, also known as leukocytes, are considered a formed element of blood, just like red blood cells and platelets. Their production primarily occurs in the bone marrow, similar to red blood cells, through a process called hematopoiesis. White blood cells are classified into two main subcategories, granulocytes and agranulocytes. The key difference between these groups lies in their appearance under a microscope. Granulocytes contain visible granules in their cytoplasm. These granules are packed with enzymes and other substances that help combat infections. Agranulocytes, on the other hand, lack visible granules in their cytoplasm, giving them a smoother appearance. There are three types of white blood cells classified as granulocytes: neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. A helpful way to remember them is by their shared "phil" suffix, which indicates their affinity for staining and the presence of granules in their cytoplasm. Let's take a close look at these granulocytes. In neutrophils, the granules contain digestive enzymes or proteases, defensins, and reactive oxygen species. These help destroy bacteria and fungi through phagocytosis and the release of toxic substances that kill pathogens. Neutrophils are the first responders to infection. In eosinophils, the granules are rich in major basic protein, or MBP, eosinophil peroxidase, and enzymes like histaminase. These help combat parasitic infections, especially helminths or worms, and modulate allergic reactions by breaking down inflammatory mediators like histamine. In basophils, their granules contain histamine, heparin, and cytokines, which play a key role in allergic reactions and inflammation. They help trigger the inflammatory response by releasing histamine, which increases blood vessel permeability and attracts other immune cells. Each granulocyte is specialized to fight different types of threats: neutrophils for bacteria and fungi, eosinophils for parasites and allergies, and basophils for allergic and inflammatory responses. There are two types of agranulocytes: monocytes and lymphocytes. Unlike granulocytes, these cells lack visible granules in their cytoplasm, giving them a smoother appearance under a microscope. Monocytes are the largest type of white blood cell. Once they leave the bloodstream and enter tissues, they differentiate into either macrophages or dendritic cells. Macrophages are highly efficient phagocytes, which means that they engulf and digest pathogens, dead cells, and debris. They also play a role in activating other immune cells. Dendritic cells are specialized to initiate an adaptive immune response. Lymphocytes are a small to medium-sized blood cell. They differentiate into one of three types of cells: B cells, which are responsible for antibody production and remain in our body for long-term immunity; T cells, which will mature in the thymus gland and play a role in cell-mediated immunity; and natural killer cells, which is part of the innate immune system. Unlike red blood cells, white blood cells retain their nucleus, which is essential for their role in immune responses. The structure of WBCs varies depending on their type, but all share a flexible, irregular shape that allows them to navigate through tissues. They are typically larger than red blood cells and have a distinct, prominent nucleus that can be round, oval, or lobed, depending on the type of WBC. Unlike red blood cells, which have a fixed lifespan of about 120 days, white blood cells vary significantly in longevity based on their function and activation state. Neutrophils. These are short-lived first responders, typically surviving 6 to 12 hours in circulation and up to 1 to 2 days in tissues before undergoing programmed cell death known as apoptosis or forming pus at infection sites. Eosinophils and basophils. These cells live for several days in circulation, but eosinophils may persist for 1 to 2 weeks in tissues. Basophils, while less understood, are believed to survive for a few days. Monocytes. These circulate in the bloodstream for about 1 to 3 days before migrating into tissues where they differentiate into macrophages or dendritic cells, living for weeks to months as part of the innate immune system. Lymphocytes, B and T cells. These have the longest lifespan, ranging from weeks to years. Some memory B and T cells can persist for decades, providing long-term immunity after infections or vaccinations. Natural killer or NK cells. These live for a few weeks but are continuously replenished from the bone marrow. This variability in lifespan reflects the different roles WBCs play. Neutrophils provide rapid but short-lived responses, while lymphocytes ensure long-term immune memory. An important feature of white blood cells is their ability to undergo diapedesis, a process where they squeeze through the walls of blood vessels to reach tissues affected by infection or injury. This movement allows them to migrate from the bloodstream into the tissues, where they perform functions such as phagocytosis, antigen presentation, and immune cell activation.